Solve the equation 3x to the 1/2 is equal to x to the 1/5. It's always a good idea when solving equations that involve powers to adjust the equation so that we're comparing an expression to 0. So I will do that first. I will go ahead and subtract x to the 1/5 power from both sides. So I'll rewrite the equation then as 3x to the 1/2 minus x to the 1/5 is equal to 0. I'm going to treat this now as if it's a polynomial equation. I'm going to factor out a common factor. Now it's tricky to determine what to factor out, but just like with polynomials, we want to factor out the lowest exponent that's present between all the variable terms that have the variables. So here we have x to the 1/2, we have x to the 1/5. Might be a good idea to rewrite these exponents so that they have a common denominator. So 1/2 and 1/5, a common denominator is 10. I can rewrite this as 3x to the 5/10 minus x to the 2/10 power is 0. And now it looks like it's easier for me to determine what the smaller exponent is, and that's 2/10. So I will factor out x to the 2/10 power, and so then that would be multiplied by 3x to the 3/10 power, because 2/10 plus 3/10 is 5/10. And if you remember how our rules for exponents work, that should make sense. And then minus 1. Don't forget that term, distributive property backwards, basically. And this is still equal to 0. And so now I've got a factored form. I have a factored form equal to 0. I can set each factor equal to 0. So then x to the 2/10 power is 0, or 3x to the 3/10 power minus 1 is equal to 0. Now, for the first equation, if x to the power, any power, is 0, x must be 0. So x is 0. For the second equation, if 3x to the 3/10 minus 1 is 0, let's isolate the power. Let's isolate x to the 3/10. I'll add 1 and divide by 3. Then x to the 3/10 power, 0 plus 1 is 1, divided by 3 is 1/3. And now to isolate x, I will raise both sides of that equation to the 10/3 power. So then x to the first power, or more simply x, is 1/3 raised to the 10/3 power. Now, I ran that number, I calculated that number earlier, and that number is approximately 0.02568. So depending on if we were asked for exact form, 1/3 to the 10/3 is exact, or the approximation. And so this equation actually has two solutions. The solutions are x equals 0, or x is equal to 1/3 to the 10/3 power, or its approximation.